Okay, let's dive right into this explainer. Today, we're exploring a truly fascinating collision between the rigid traditional legal system and the fluid, nonlinear world of complex network science. It's a story where the boundaries of law, digital architecture, and fundamental physics literally crash right into each other in a real-world courtroom. Basically, we're looking at what happens when absolute legal definitions meet the highly complex, messy, mathematical reality of the internet. Think about this for a second. Can obscure computer science and physics concepts actually keep someone out of jail? Usually, when we think of a criminal defense, we picture, alibis, eyewitness testimony, or maybe forensic DNA evidence. But what happens when the defense relies on the mathematical structure of the internet itself? Today, we're unpacking a case that asks whether the very code that runs our social media feeds can act as a literal alibi. The core of our story is Dr. Chen Jinyuan. According to the source documents, Dr. Chen is an independent scholar who found himself facing a very serious criminal charge with severe potential consequences. And the alleged crime? Just forwarding online posts. He was accused of picking quarrels and provoking trouble. Within this legal framework, that is a heavy charge, claiming his digital activity severely disrupted public order. Just imagine looking at years in prison simply for clicking retweet or share on a few articles online.
So here is our roadmap for the explainer today. First, the cyber charge. Second, constitutional rights examined. Third, the science of networks. Fourth, CAP theorem explained. Fifth, the causality disconnect. And finally, law meets modern science. Let's get right into it.
Section 1. The cyber charge. Let's neutrally examine the specific details of the allegations leveled against the scholar here. The source documents report that Dr. Chen's online presence was remarkably small. His account had fewer than 100 followers. Think about your own social media for a moment. That's a really tiny circle, right? Yet he was criminally charged for forwarding materials, which included things like an Umbrella Girl cartoon, statements from foreign embassies, and various academic posts. The prosecution's argument was that by forwarding these posts, he was spreading false information and causing severe social chaos. To put that into perspective, the prosecution essentially argued that sharing cartoons to a room smaller than a typical high school graduating class caused severe societal-level chaos.
Section 2. Constitutional rights examined.
What's really fascinating is how various AI models analyzed the specific charges against fundamental constitutional texts. The AI neutrally maps out the tension between the legal charges and these core rights. As the sources outline, Article 35 guarantees freedom of speech, which the models suggest is directly in tension with criminalizing the forwarding of political cartoons and critiques. Then we have Article 47, which protects freedom of scientific research. The AI points out that punishing a scholar for gathering and comparing diverse ideas could easily be seen as restricting that exact research process. Finally, there's Article 38, protecting human dignity. The case files note the defense argued that dismissing a scholar's academic defense by just commanding him to shut up in court constitutes a systemic dismissal of human dignity.
Moving on to Section 3, the science of networks. So rather than just arguing the law, the defense took a totally different route. To attempt to prove objectively that a single internet user couldn't cause severe social chaos, they turned to math and physics. They used the concept of a scale-free network. In network science, this accurately describes the underlying structure of modern social media platforms. In a scale-free network, connections aren't equal. They follow a power law. Think of it like your favorite app. You have these massive supernodes like pop stars, major news outlets, or global brands. And then you have millions upon millions of tiny nodes, which are everyday users with just a handful of friends. It all comes down to this structural power dynamic between a hub node and a peripheral node. A hub node is that massive media outlet with millions of followers. They literally have the gravity to dictate the flow of information. Dr. Chen's account, with its sub-100 follower count, is a peripheral node. In network science, a peripheral node simply does not have the structural capacity to cause a systemic cascade across the network. Even if you completely deleted all peripheral nodes, or if they all just started shouting at once, the network's main information architecture would remain entirely stable. The math just doesn't support the idea of a micro account causing macro chaos. Section 4. CAP theorem explained. Let's see how this builds with another foundational concept from computer science. The defense invoked the CAP theorem. Formulated back in the year 2000, it proves mathematically that a global distributed network must sacrifice absolute consistency to remain available. In plain English,
If you want a massive social network to stay online for users all over the world, it is mathematically impossible for every single user to see the exact same, perfectly ordered data at the exact same time. Have you ever liked a post, but your friend looking at the same post on their phone right next to you doesn't see your like immediately? That is the CAP theorem in action. The network inherently has pockets of localized disorder, meaning a perfectly orderly network is technically impossible by design.
Section 5. The Causality Disconnect. The crucial point here is how these scientific realities completely challenge the legal system's assumptions of causality. How does action A lead to result B? The legal system usually relies on a very mechanical, linear causality. It assumes a simple step-by-step progression. Step 1, a user forwards a post. Step 2, people read it. Step 3, society falls into severe chaos. It basically treats the internet like a simple machine, where pushing one button instantly triggers a massive system-wide alarm.
But as reported in the sources, network science proves this linear chain is fundamentally flawed. First, the CAP theorem shows us that chaos, or inconsistency, is an intrinsic property of the network itself, not some anomaly caused by a single user. Second, theories of network robustness, specifically Cohen's threshold, which calculates how networks handle disruptions, prove mathematically that peripheral nodes simply do not break the system. Therefore, attributing macrosystemic chaos to a micronode with less than 100 followers is a statistical impossibility. The mathematical cause and effect link is just completely broken.
Dr. Chen actually summarized this disconnect with a really powerful metaphor from his defense document. He stated, "My forwarding is like breathing out carbon dioxide. You cannot sentence me to life in prison because of global warming." I mean, that vividly captures the logical gap of applying linear legal logic to complex systems. Yes, he breathed out a tiny bit of carbon dioxide by forwarding a post, but to blame him for macro-level climate change, the supposed social chaos, totally ignores the vast, complex, and unequal realities of the system we all participate in.
Section 6. Law meets modern science. As we wrap up, we observe the broader philosophical clash between these two paradigms. It's no longer just about one scholar's forwarded posts, it is about how we define and understand reality in the digital age. The source analysis highlights a profound disconnect, brilliantly describing the legal system's approach as trying to use 19th century mechanical laws, like simple Newtonian physics, to judge 21st century complex digital phenomena. The law expects linear, predictable reactions. Meanwhile, modern social networks operate way more like quantum mechanics, where scale, probability, and systemic architecture dictate the outcome, not just a single drop in the vast digital ocean.
I want to end this explainer with a provocative question to leave you pondering. As technology rapidly outpaces tradition, how must our legal frameworks evolve to truly understand digital reality? If our courts are still operating on linear logic while our societies are operating on complex network math, that gap between justice and science is only going to widen. Think about how much of our lives happens inside these networks today. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I hope this gives you a whole new lens through which to view the digital world.